Best leg and greetings to all my dear students. Well, for today I'll be starting with the new chapter number 3, and that is conditional and iterative statements. We are completely done with the first two chapters. The first one was the Python fundamentals, and then we had the data handling. So those two chapters should give you a feel-good factor when it comes to the basics of Python as a programming language. So from here on, we are actually going to get into a proper programming mode. So like I said, the name of the chapter is Conditional and Iterative Statements. First things first, these are the points that will assist me in taking the class. Okay, so the points that I've listed here are the topics and the subtopics that I'm going to deal with as of today's class. Firstly, till date, we have come up with a program for which the order of execution is always based on sequence, which means, let's say you have a program of 5 statements. So the flow of control, the order in which the program executes, is always based on sequential. Say you have a program which has 5 statements. It always starts with the first statements, and then the second statement is the next, third, so on and so forth, until the last statement in a program is executed. But at times, there are many situations where sequential is not enough, where the flow of control should be and could be little random in nature. So in this particular chapter, we are going to focus on the next 2 programming constructs, and those 2 are the conditional and then you have the iterative. Right? So when I say random, it could be from statement number 1 to statement number 3 and then back to statement number 2. So that is the meaning of random flow of control. And then at times, certain statements need to be executed time and again as per the need of the program, right? So when we talk about these situations, sequential flow of control in a program is not enough. So we need to have tools which will support us such random flow of control of statements in a program, right? So this is a brief introduction on the chapter of conditional and iterative statements. Now, going to the next particular point, statement flow control. So basically, there are 3 important modes or 3 important ways of the flow of control in the program. The first one is sequential. I've mentioned here, the first one is sequential, and then you have the selection, and then finally you have the iteration. So sequence is something which we have been dealing with till date. That's the default flow of control, or that is the normal flow of control of the statements in the program, right? What is meant by selection is based on a condition, based on a given test. If a certain condition evaluates to true, one course of action is followed. If the condition or if the test evaluates to false, another course of action or another set of statements is executed. So it is something similar to, let's say, if a traffic light turns red, which means you are instructed to stop. If it's a green light, then you are instructed to move on. So something similar to this. In a program, at times we need to execute this particular set of statements, provided the condition is true. If the condition evaluates to false, another group of statements need to be executed. So these kind of situation or these kind of programming construct is actually being referred to as selection. Next up is you have the iteration. Iteration means nothing but repetition. Before I come up with the very definition of iteration, let me come up with a nice example. Let's say you are playing a soccer match, and then you are in a forward position, right? So long the referee doesn't blow the whistle to signal the end of the match, as a forward, you could keep trying to score goals until the referee signals the end of the match. So you have a nice example in which a course of action or set of statements which are being repeatedly executed as long as the condition is true. As long as the ref doesn't blow the whistle, you could just keep trying to score goals. The moment he blows the whistle, there's no point trying to score the goals. That signals the end of the match. So something similar to that. At times, we may need to execute a block of statements over and over again as long as the condition remains true. The moment the condition evaluates to false, we should come out of the block of statements, right? So these are the three important flow of control of statements. The first one is the sequence, and then you have the selection, and then finally you have the iteration. Like I said, in this particular chapter, we are going to focus largely on selection and iteration. Okay? So in order to implement the selection construct, now when I say construct, I'm talking about the structure. So in order to implement the selection and the iteration, just like every other programming languages, be it C++, be it Java, be it any programming languages, all the programming languages offer some kind of tools or some statements in order to implement the selection and the iteration. So just like every other programming languages, Python is no exception. So Python offers the statement of if. Okay, so this if statement is a conditional statement. Now, when I say if is a conditional statement, which means if followed by a test or a condition. So the following statement, whether it needs to be executed or not, is entirely based on the condition which sits next to the if. So the reason why I say if is a conditional statement is the if tests a particular test or a condition. Based on the result, the following statement will be executed or it will be skipped. So let's move on to the examples or the programs. That will give us a better idea. By the way, this is another IDE. Till date, we have been using the default IDLE for the Python programming language, but this is again another IDE, namely Jupyter Notebook. So it looks like a notebook, and then you can have just one notebook and then write as many programs as you want. So the moment you open the notebook, you will see all the programs just like how you see the pages in the notebook, right? So now let's move on further. Okay, let's focus on the first example, right? So I'll just make some spaces. I hope you're able to see this. Okay, maybe if I could make it a little larger. Okay, that's better. Okay, so hash is a symbol which is used to convert the line into the comment. This is something, hopefully you know it. Hash, inserts a comments, and comments are used for adding some nodes to the program, right? So let's check out the first example in order to demonstrate the working of if statement. And remember, if is a conditional statement, right? Now let's say I have a ch variable, and then I'll have the input function, and then a message, enter a character, all right? Okay, I'll have some statement, I'll have one statement like this, and then I use the if ch is equal to space. You need to leave a space between the between a pair of single quotes. Be careful. And then the if statement should always end with the colon. So the colon signals the end of the if condition, right? So this is very important. The moment you press enter, what happens is the cursor will line up after some spaces. So this is what is meant by indentation. Indentation means the gaps that you find before the actual text. That is something which we call it as indent. Dent means to make some, dent means a hole or a space. Indent means to leave some spaces, right? So the moment you press enter, the Python will automatically place the cursor after probably 4 spaces. 4 spaces is the convention, is the rule. So the moment you press enter, the cursor will be right here. So it means the statements that we write here following this particular cursor is the block or are the statements of the if condition. Okay, now let's say I'll write a statement here, print, and then I'll have a message, you entered a space, right? So I'll just try to run this, but before I run it, let's try to understand the program, okay? So the moment I run it, the user will be prompted to enter a character, okay? Let's say I enter a space. The space as a character will be assigned to a variable of ch, okay? So what is the value of ch? The value of ch is a space. And then if conditional statement compares the value of ch with the space. Okay? So obviously, this is an example of a relational expression. So the value of ch is equal to space. So is space equal to space, the condition becomes true. If the condition becomes true, the statement of if will be executed. How do you know whether this statement is a body of this if is? You could make out from the indentation. You could make out from these gaps that this is a body of this if statement. Or in other words, this is a statement which belongs to this if. So if the condition is true, the statement of if will be executed. If this condition evaluates to false, this statement will not be executed. Very simple, right? So now we'll run the program and check. Now say I run this program and then I am being prompted to enter a character. Now let's say I press a space bar. Okay? The moment I press enter, this particular character, which is a white space character, but it is a character, will be assigned to ch. The moment I press enter, I get the answer as you entered a space. You entered a space. Okay? Now let's say if I run the program again and then if I enter letter A, the A will be assigned to ch. The value of ch, which is A, is it equal to space? This relational expression will evaluate to Boolean value of false. If it's false, what happens is this statement will not be executed, right? And then what happens if it's not executed? It tries to execute the next statement, but this is the end of the program, okay? So when you press enter, nothing happens. And nothing should happen because you don't have any following or subsequent statements. And that is the end of the program, okay? I hope you're clear with this. Now let's say I'll add some more codes. Let's say if I have something like this, if ch is greater or equal to 0 and I use the logical AND operator and ch is less than or equal to 9, alright? And then do not miss out on the colon and I press enter. If the condition is true, I would like to print a message, you entered a digit. Okay? Now what happens here is, now let's say I enter 1, 2, 3, 4. But before this, I want to make certain thing clear. Whenever characters are compared like this, whether the ch is greater or equal to 0, if it's less than or equal to 9, the digits itself are not compared, just like how you compare 1 and 2. 1 and 2, which is greater, 2 is greater. When the numbers are enclosed in a pair of single quotes, they become a string or they become a character. Okay? So each of these characters have an ASCII code. I hope you remember the ASCII code of small a is 97, and then small z is 122, big A is 65, big Z is 90. Alright? So you could actually check the ordinal values. For example, just use this. Say ORD of 0. Okay? So this has to be a character, right? And then when I just say print it, okay, I just print the ordinal or the ASCII value of 0, right? So when I press enter, I get 48, right? And then when I have 9 here, and then try to run it, I get the value of 57. So 48 to 57. So when the characters, this is a character, it's not a numeric 0, it's not a numeric 9. These are characters. So when characters like A, B, C, 0, 9, hash, comma, when they are compared against each other using the relational operator, their ASCII codes are used. So you need to know this, right? Now let's say, we run the program, alright? Say I run the first program, and then again I'm being told to enter a character. Now this time I enter a letter A. Okay, what happens? A, will be assigned to CH. Is it equal to space? The condition becomes false. If it becomes false, this statement will be skipped or ignored because the condition evaluates to false. The next in line is you have this again another if statement. Now this time the value of A, the ASCII value of A is 65. Remember? 65 is greater or equal to 0. This condition is true. Remember the ASCII code of 0 is 48, the ASCII code of A is 65. But is it less than 57? The ASCII code of 9 is 57. I showed you, right? So CH is 65. Is it? Wait a minute. Okay, CH is 65, is it greater or equal to 0? The condition is true, right? However, this condition evaluates to false. The value of the ASCII code of CH is 65. Remember, 65 is less than or equal to 57. This condition becomes false, right? So in AND operator, for the overall condition to be true, both the condition needs to be true. Remember? I have come up with the example of I want to see pencil and sitting. So both should turn up, right? For me to answer my question, both needs to turn up. So moment you have AND operation, both the condition needs to be true in order for the overall condition to be true. However, the first condition is true, but the second condition is false. Okay? So which means the overall result will be false. So if this is false, again, this will not be executed, right? So when you press enter, nothing happens, okay? Because you don't have any following statements. Now let's run the program for some other combination. Let's say I enter 1 here. When I enter 1, this condition will be false. This statement will not be executed. However, the ASCII code of 1 is 48. 48 greater or equal to 0 is 47. This condition is true. 48 is less than 57. Okay, the ASCII code of 9 is 57. So both the condition becomes true, and then the overall condition becomes true, and this statement will be executed. Hence, you get the answer of you just entered a digit, right? So all in all, the if is a conditional statement which tests the condition. If the condition evaluates to true, the following statement will be executed. The if statement will be executed, otherwise it will not be executed, right? So now let's move on to the next example. Example number 2. Right? I'll just get rid of this. Okay. Now let's say I have some values in A, and then in B I have 20. Right? Okay. Now let's say if just a example, right? It could be any example. Now let's say if I have A plus B multiplied by A minus B, right? I'm trying to stay as close as possible with a textbook example, right? If it's greater than say 10, all right? So A plus B is how much? 30. Okay. A minus B is how much? This is this will probably be minus, right? So the condition will be false in this case. Now let's say we'll make the condition true, all right? So the answer of this will be n minus. A plus B is how much? 30. Okay, and then A minus B is minus 10. Minus 10 into 30 is minus 300. Minus 300 is it less than 10? This is just an example, all right? So if the condition is true, then I would like to print, say the condition or the condition is true, all right? And then I have another one. Let's say some random example. Formula is correct. Okay, and then I come here, and then what I do is I come back to the original position. I come back to the location to the extreme left by pressing the backspace, and then I print something like this. Print a message end of the program. Okay. Now this is again another example to give you another perspective to the if statement. At times, the whole idea of this program is just to let you know that at times if statement can have multiple statements. In the earlier example, we just have only one statement as the body of if. But in this particular example, we have a body of if, but the body has two statements. How do you know whether it has two statements? You need to check the level of indentation. The level of this indentation is different from the indentation of these two statements. So basically, when you talk about indentation, you are talking about the gaps or the spaces before the actual statement, right? So since these two statements have the same level of indentation, I could say that these two statements belong to this if. So which means if the condition is true, both these statements will be executed. Okay, straight and simple, right? Once again, if the condition is true, both the statements will be executed. How do you know that both the statements will be executed? Just look at the level of indentation, right? So they form the same block. Now let's say if the condition is false, both these statements will not be executed. And then the interpreter continues with the program. Is that the end of the program? No, you have one statement. Okay, you have one statement just like statement number 1 and statement number 2, and this has to execute, right? So all in all, if the condition is true, which is true in this case, if it's true, these two statements will be executed followed by this also. If the condition is false, these two statements will be skipped, but this particular statement will be executed, right? Now let's try to run the program and check. Okay, what do we have? Now since the condition is true is printed, formula is correct, that is also being printed, and then finally, now this has nothing to do with if statement, it just comes next in the queue or next in the line, hence we get end of the program. Now let's change the program a little bit. Let's say I have greater than sign. Now if this condition condition. Now this condition will be false. If it is false, these two statements will not be executed. Okay? And then the next up in the line is this statement. This statement will be executed, right? So let's run the program and check. So you clearly see that condition is true, formula is correct are not printed. The reason is the condition is false. Minus 300 is greater than 10, the condition is false. But this statement will be printed. Okay? So this is again another aspect of the if conditional statement. Now let's go to the third question. Okay, example 3. Both the earlier programs, they check for the result of the relational expression, right? This is a relational expression. You have the relational operator greater there, and then up there again you have the relational operator which is equal sign. You have the greater or equal to, less than or equal to. So all these are nothing but relational operators, and these are relational expression. So if first works with the Boolean value which is the result of these relational expression, and then if you remember, the if also works with the truthness value of an object. We have done this already in the earlier chapter. Every object has a truthness value, be it true with small t or false with small f. Now these two values are represented based on emptiness or zeroness of the object, right? I don't think I need to explain any further. I hope you remember vividly. Now let's go and check. Now let's say I have a variable called x. X is equal to, I write 4 here, alright? And then I have the if statement and then just the name of the object. Like I said, if works with the relational expression, okay? Relational expression always come out with the Boolean value of true and false. If it's true, the statement will be executed. If it's false, the statement will not be executed. But at times, if also works with the truthness value of the very object. So, if I just have something like this, okay, may I know the truthness value of x? The truthness value of x is true with small t, right? So again, it works just the same. If it's true, the following statement will be executed, or the body of the if, or the statement associated with if will be executed, otherwise it will be not. Now let's say I have, again, look at this. The moment you press enter, what happens? The cursor lines up here. So the IDE is trying to help us. This is the reason why we call it as integrated development environment. Okay, the environment should have all the features, the facilities. So something similar to this. We have the Jupyter as IDE, as another IDE. So let's have a statement, and then let's check the number of spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the convention is we use 3 spaces, okay? So you don't have to keep pressing 4 spaces. The moment you press enter, the cursor lines up nicely at the required position. And let's say I would like to print a message if the condition is true. X has truth value of true. Okay, so if I run this, will this statement be printed or not? It will be printed, right? Okay, you have this. X has truth value of true because the value of x is 4. It is non-zero, right? Now let's say if I have something like this, 0.0. So this time 0.0 is a float data or a float variable whose truth value is false, right? Now this time, if the truthness value of x is false, hence this statement will not be executed. So we'll just run this. We will not get anything on the output. Okay, now let's say, I'll just make a little trick. I use the not operator. Not always returns the negation of the value. Not of true is false, not of false is true. Simple and straight. So not is again a logical operator which will reverse the truthness value, right? Now tell me something. Will this statement be executed or not? The value of x is 0.0, right? So 0.0 has a truthness value of false. So not of false means true. So this statement will be executed, right? So it's just like the vice versa, just the opposite, right? So if you want to write the program in proper sense, perhaps you could say like you can change this. Okay. Now when you run this, okay, the program should be a proper program. The value of x is 0.0. Not of false is true. This statement will be executed. X has truth value of false. And then the moment I change this, let's say 0.1, and then I try to run it, I'll not get anything. And I should not get anything, right? 0.1 is the truthness value of true. Not of true is false. If it's false, this statement will not be executed. Hence, you don't see anything on the output line. Alright? So the crux of the matter is if works with the relational expression which comes out with either Boolean value of true or false, if also works with the truthness value of the object. If the object has truthness value of true, the statement will be executed. If it has false truthness value of false, the statement will not be executed, right? I hope you are clear with this. We now move on to the next conditional statement. The next conditional statement is if else. So again, it's just an extension of the if conditional statement. So in this, it's very simple. If the condition is true, one course of action is followed. Alright? If the condition is false, another set of statement or condition is executed, right? So it's like this. If you score 75% and more, you are eligible, for this particular college. Okay, if you are below that, you are eligible to get admission in another college. So something similar to this. Now let's come up with an example, right? Okay, the example, will make the picture much clearer. Let's say I want to test whether a given number is a positive number or negative number, right? So if we keep the explanation to as simple as possible, if the value is greater or equal to 0, the number is considered to be positive number. If it's not, then the number is treated as a negative number, right? Now let's say I have num variable and then I assign some random value. So this is how it works. If num is greater or equal to 0, again, do not miss out on this column. What happens if you miss out on this column? Let's check. Look at this. The cursor comes here. And then you try to write the statement. That statement will not belong to the if statement. So be careful. You should have the colon here. So if the number is greater or equal to 0, so that's the logic to test whether a given number is a positive or negative, right? If the condition is true, then this or num, comma, and then followed by the message is a positive number, right? And then I come here. Do I have any more statements for if? I don't have. If you have, just continue. If you don't have, press backspace to get to the cursor location number 1. Okay, come to the extreme left and then continue. And then you have else followed by colon. Okay, so if this condition is true, do this. Else, if the condition is false, then this statement will be executed, right? So I'll have the print statement like this. Num is a negative number, right? It's very simple, right? So the explanation goes like this. If the condition is true, this statement will be executed. If this condition is false, this statement will be executed. So in order to make the program a little interactive, I hope you remember the input function, right? Enter a number, right? This will make the program a little more interactive, right? So I run it and I check. Let's say I enter 8. The moment I press enter, I'll get the message of 8 is a positive number. How do you get this? When I entered 8 will be, initially it's a string, it'll be converted to int, and then it'll be assigned to num. 8 is greater or equal to 0, the condition is true. If the condition is true, this statement associated with if should be executed. This is how I got 8 is a positive number. So, and that should be the end of the program, right? So now let's say I run the program again and I enter -1, right? So the moment I press enter, what happens? Num value becomes -1. -1 greater or equal to 0, the condition becomes false. If it is false, the statement of else will be executed. Hence, I get the answer as num. The value of num is how much? -1. -1 is a negative number. Alright? I hope you are clear with this. Now we move on to the next program. The programs will start to look a little more interesting, right? Okay, now the next step is I want to check whether a given number is even or odd. So whenever you are assigned to write a program, you should first think over the algorithm or the logic. So the logic or the algorithm of this program is how you check, how do you know whether a given number is even number or odd number. We immediately divide that particular number by 2. And if the remainder, if a certain number is divided by 2, the remainder will either be 0 or 1. It cannot be 2, right? So if the remainder is 0, that number is an even number. If the remainder is 1, that number will be odd. So this is the crux of the logic of this program. Okay, so once you have this, it's so easy to write the program. It's so easy to convert the logic or the algorithm into the program. You know how to check out the remainder. You have to use the mod operator or the modulus operator, right? So let's start the program. Let's say again num is equal to int, or in order to keep the program's size as short as possible, we'll have a ready-made input, alright? Say I have 8 here, and then if statement followed by the condition. The condition is I check out the remainder. If the remainder is equal to 0, then that particular number is an even number, right? So how do you do this? Num modulus 2 if it's equal to 0. If the condition is true, 8 divided by 2. What is the remainder? The remainder is 0. 0 is equal to 0, then the statement that needs to be printed is it is an even number. So I have the print num comma is an even number, right? And then however, if the condition is false, then the statement associated with else will be executed, right? So num is an odd number, right? So I hope you got the program right. So let's run the program and check. Let's say I get this. Okay, for 8, I get 8 is an even number. Because look at this, 8 divided by 2. Okay, what is the remainder? The remainder is 0. 0 is it equal to 0? The condition is true. Hence, this statement needs to be executed, right? Now, let's say I change this to 7, right? And then I click on run. 7 is an odd number. Now, this time 7 divided by 2, the remainder will be 1. 1 is equal to 0. Is the condition true? No, the condition is false. If the condition is false, the definition says the else statement associated with else should be executed. Hence I get this num is an odd number. Alright? I'll try to make a little change just to test your knowledge. Let's say if I have something like this, what do you have to say about this? How I wish you could answer. How I wish you are right here in front of me. But hopefully, we'll get to see each other soon. What do you have to say about this? Num 7 modulus 2. 7 modulus 2. 7 modulus 2 means the answer will be 1. The truthness value of 1 is true or false. It's a true. Okay? So if you want to keep it like this, then you need to make a little change here. Then it should be, see, if I just leave it like this, if I run this, you will get a weird answer. 7 is an even number. Okay? So now this time I want to write the program to do the same thing, but I'm not going to use the relational operator. Okay? I want to use if with the truthness value. Okay? So look at this. So num 7 modulus 2. 7 modulus 2, you have the remainder as 1. So when you have the remainder 1 with f, which means it has truthness value of true. So I should change this to odd number, right? So I better write here odd number, and then this should be even, right? So when I run the program, now the program will come out with the right answer. Now let's say I have 8 here, or 10. Now when I run this, 10 is an even number. Now this time, just look here, 10 modulus 2. 10 modulus 2, the remainder is 0. So this time, the object's truthness value is false. If it is false, this statement, the statement of else will be executed. Hence you have 10 is an even number. So you have two ways of writing the program to test whether a given number is even or odd. The first method was using the relational expression if it's equal to 0. Remember? The second method is you are using the operand or the truthness value of a value or a variable along with the if. So this is something which you need to take note of, right? Okay, so this is the end of the first part of the video.